Story 1. My boyfriend died 4 years ago. We just moved into our new home and got a new puppy. I am not happier now than I was then. I wanted to mention that it has gotten easier. I just know I'm not happier overall. However, there are lessons I learned looking back. Not being in the relationship helped me see things more clearly. We weren't perfect, and there are aspects about him and my relationship that I want to be different in my next relationship. But we loved each other, and we were happy. I would love to be back there. Story 2. Much happier now that I lost 100 pounds and started walking 2 miles a day. Depression has lifted, and life is good. Story 3. About the same. 5 years before that, it was a very bad place. I forgot to mention what would make me happier now. Ideally, I would like my anxiety and depression to completely disappear. Realistically, moving to a nicer house with a garden would also help. Story 4. I am much happier now. I was in a miserable marriage during the pandemic that was tearing us apart. Now I am happily divorced, with a wonderful partner, living by the ocean and expecting a baby. Story 5. I am at peace today, more than in 2020. What would make me happy is if my salon manager were replaced by anyone else. That is all. Story 6. Yes, 2020 was a turning point for me as an individual and in my relationships. Extensive therapy for all involved has been incredibly beneficial. Story 7. 5 years ago, I was overwhelmed caring for COVID patients who were critically ill. Then I contracted COVID, which resulted in permanent migraines. The migraines are improving, and the situation with COVID has improved as fewer people are dying from it. Now, we face the challenge of individuals not getting vaccinated against preventable diseases, leading to risks like measles. My message remains the same. Get vaccinated. Story 8. I would be happier if Donald Trump and President Elon Musk weren't trying to interfere with my retirement. Social Security and Medicare are what I rely on. Story 9. I am not, unfortunately, a career success. Improving my relationship or finding a new one, along with my family's health, would do the trick. Story 10. I cannot remember a time I was unhappy for more than a few minutes. I am happy, but my life is more complete now than it was 5 years ago due to the progress I have made. Story 11. No, not at all. My current problems have simply replaced my previous ones. You get used to it. Story 12. Yes, I have matured. Things that bothered me 5 years ago no longer affect me. Life happens. You learn what needs to be cherished and what you should not spend even 5 seconds worrying about. I have found peace. Story 13. I had my dog 5 years ago. I am not happier without him. It has been 1.5 years since I last held him, and I miss him dearly. Story 14. Up until November, I would say yes. What would make me happier is if there were not a group undermining American science in charge. Story 15. No, I would say I am significantly less happy. I had a long-term relationship end, moved away from my family to start my career, and I generally feel pretty isolated from most of my old friends. Story 16. I think I am, but I feel really lonely sometimes. I would consider a relationship, but I don't think that's the solution. Perhaps more financial stability and therapy would help. Story 17. Happier? Yes, in a way. Content is a better word. I have moved on from romantic relationships, and I feel much happier. What would increase my happiness now is having a tent, a mule, and a place to set up the tent in the woods. I want to go off the grid and away from the city. Story 18. 5 years ago, my mother was drinking vodka sodas and crying every morning with a hangover. I am much happier now that I don't drink. However, my life feels more tedious now, which makes me unhappy. Story 19. To quote AJR, are you happy now? No, but I'm way less sad. I work a job that is my dream job. Things aren't perfect, but I don't wake up dreading my day or my work week. I receive smaller payments more frequently, which makes financial situations easier to manage. I no longer live on my own, but if I could afford the aspects of my life easily, meaning I could maintain my daily life without stress and use my debit card when needed without checking balances before and after purchases, I would be happy. Story 20. Kind of the same. I reached some goals, but not many. Turns out I was right about some things, which makes me happy. Story 21. I am much happier than I was 5 years ago. I'm grateful for everything I have in my life right now. The only thing that would make me happier would be gaining financial freedom, marrying my girlfriend, and starting a family. Story 22. Absolutely happier. I endured so much, and now my life is starting to come together. A raise would be nice, but I really can't complain about much. Story 23. I am definitely happier than I was. A housing market where I could own my own home would make me even happier now. Being able to decorate as I wish, have as many guests as I like, and have separate rooms for my wife and me when we need some alone time would be wonderful. Having a pet or two would also be nice. Story 24. I am much happier than 5 years ago. The only thing that could make me happier is having enough money to pay the bills. Story 25. I would definitely be happier if Paulo Banchero didn't play poorly after returning from injury. Story 26. Yeah, I'm not about to enter a 2-year lockdown over COVID. That's where I was 5 years ago today. Story 27. Not happier, but in a better mental state. Over the past year, I have transitioned from suicidal anxiety to feeling extremely angry. Story 28. I am in a better situation, but I can't say I am happier. Yes, I have the money now, but I am not with my partner anymore. Story 29. I can't say that I am happier than I was before, but there are some things and people who make me feel happy. Story 30. I had a false version of happiness bought with alcohol and avoidance. I'm less happy now, but the happiness is real. What would make me happier? Undoing the damage I did to myself. Story 31. I don't know if I'm more unhappy, but I am certainly less hopeful after the pandemic. I feel like something is different, as if life were a big piece of styrofoam. The days are full, but real life is missing. Story 32. Yes, by confronting my weaknesses, limiting beliefs, and failures, I may be experiencing more challenges. However, in actively pursuing growth, I find a greater sense of peace, confidence, and overall happiness. Story 33. No, I wasn't that happy then either, but I can't say for sure what would make me happier. Perhaps a purpose in life. Story 34. I believe I am happier than I was 5 years ago. It's close, possibly the same. I would be even happier if I had someone who understood me or at least made an effort to understand. Story 35. I was living alone in a basement apartment with no natural light and no car during COVID-19. It was very depressing. I am now married for 3 years and have an almost 2-year-old son. Am I happier now? Perhaps with less anxiety. Being a mom can bring on a lot of anxiety. Story 36. Actually, yes. I never thought I would comment on this. I had many negative people in my life and I struggled with their impact for a while. Now, things seem brighter and it's like when I was young. I am finding myself setting goals and having dreams. So yes, thank goodness, finally. Story 37. Honestly, I was pretty happy when I was younger, but I think I am happier now because I have a lot more direction, and I also met a really good woman. Story 38. I am happier. The only thing that could improve my joy is witnessing my children complete their post-secondary education and become employed. Story 39. If you asked me 3 months ago, I would have given an emphatic yes. Now I am wondering if we will be calling COVID the good old days. 90% of my life is actually going really well. Career, hobbies, social life, all that. I just have never been able to experience long-term romance. Hopefully that can change before we all get wiped out. Story 40. Totalment. Volver a ver a algunas amigas cara a cara. No las veo por la distancia, pero todo sigue bien con casi todas ellas. Story 41. Not at all. On one hand, I am cutting myself less, which is great, and I am no longer binge drinking. However, I have grown hardened compared to 5 years ago. I used to believe that my dreams were possible, but I am not so sure anymore, and I feel very burnt out. My inner idealist has died. Story 42. No, I'm not happier. I would love to have a house with enough rooms for all my kids and a decent-sized backyard. I'm tired of living in an apartment. Story 43. 5 years ago, I was very insecure about my appearance and body due to years of teasing and torment in high school. The COVID-19 pandemic changed my mindset completely. Although it was difficult at first, I realized I needed to focus on achieving my goals rather than worrying about a few negative comments. Once COVID-19 began to ease, I started working out and haven't looked back since. I am much happier today than I was before the pandemic. Story 44. Yes, I am happier. Mainly because I am not in high school anymore. I could be happier if I did not have persistent sleep issues and I am trying to figure it out. Also, I would be happier if I had a lot of money. Story 45. No. What I need is enough money to pay off my debts. That is all that is wrong with my life right now. Story 46. I am much happier now. I lost 130 pounds and I got sober. Many good things are happening. My career is getting started, and I finally see a light. I lived a long time thinking I would die as an addict, but everything has changed. Story 47. Second on the happier but not happy. I'm not sure. Maybe a new hobby like knitting or something. Woodworking, but I would need a few tools first, I guess. Story 48. More peaceful. But I honestly miss my ex-wife some days. I still think it was probably for the best. I wasn't the best to her, and vice versa. Hopefully, she got to do many of the things she had always wanted. Story 49. Yes, I retired, but I would be happier if I could truly afford to retire. I didn't consider the impact of the current inflation rate and the drop in the stock market. Story 50. Yes, my wife is the reason. She helped me with my self-image and self-esteem and provided me with a ready-made family that loves me. The fact that I wanted to say so far, but didn't is a testament to her efforts. Story 51. What would make me happier is if figures like Trump, Musk, Johnson, and Farage would simply leave. Story 52. Yes, I was majorly depressed and thought I was a lazy person. Now I am realizing many things. I would be happier if I could leave for college already. Story 53. My husband is still alive. He died a month after our wedding last year. Going back to 2020 would be incredible right now. Story 54. 2019 was the worst year of my life, and going into COVID the next year did not help. I fell into the deepest depression of my life, being 19 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, and weighing 119 pounds. I went 3 days at a time without eating, drinking, and smoked daily, hooking up with strangers to fill the void. Today, I am 8 months sober, mainly because I am pregnant with my second child. However, I was doing much better even before that. I got a house with my partner, am making significantly more money, and working on my relationship with God. I needed to take a moment today to be mindful and grateful that I am living in my answered prayers, even if the days are still tough. Thank you for this opportunity for reflection. Starting maternity leave would make me happier, but patience is key. Story 55. I am not exactly happier, but I definitely feel more secure, more content, and more optimistic. I live in a much better area than before. I am starting to pursue more hobbies and interests, and I am setting better boundaries with work. I am also more financially stable and better off, and I am beginning to feel healthier. I still have more work to do to feel happier, but I am confident I am making progress. Story 56. 5 years ago, I was a drug addict in a small band. Today, I have a solid career and an amazing girlfriend. Life is pretty cool now. Story 57. Not especially. The pandemic severely impacted my industry, and most of my friends moved away from my city. Overall, everything has worsened. Financial support would definitely help improve my current happiness. Story 58. My life has improved, but I really missed the time before COVID-19. Surviving is hard now, even with a much better job. I think I need to work less to be happier. Story 59. I came out as transgender and have been transitioning since last year. I wish I had realized my identity earlier. Story 60. 5 years ago, we left a difficult living situation and moved in with family, which was fine but not sustainable long-term. My children were much younger and still mostly in diapers. Then, COVID-19 happened. Now we have a nice home in a good neighborhood. My children are in school, and I'm working part-time in a job I enjoy, so I'm definitely happier than I was 5 years ago. Story 61. In March 2020, I was in college and moving home due to the pandemic. Now, I'm living 3,000 miles from home in my dream city. I am much happier now. There is a lot more responsibility, but I am so much happier. Story 62. I haven't been happy since 2016 because that's when my adulthood started. I can't stand when people say money doesn't buy happiness. It's when you have too much money that it no longer buys you happiness, because you will always be searching for that next high a purchase can give. Speaking of which, I watched some reality games recently. Each contestant receives $2,000 just for participating. If you are eliminated later on, you would still receive $10,000 to $100,000 to take home. They have the nerve to act like they don't appreciate that $10,000 because they could have won $10 million. That's greedy. $10,000 would legitimately change the course of my life. Story 63. I am in a better place than I was 5 years ago. I have improved relationships with my parents, except for my father, who has never been in my life, and I do not intend to let him in anytime soon, as we had several arguments. I am in contact with family members I have not seen for years due to these arguments. Despite these positives, I have not yet had time to sit and reflect on my own pain and mental well-being, as I have prioritized others before myself. Story 64. I am much happier. 5 years ago, I was 20, living at home with my parents, working a low-paying receiving job making $13 per hour, thinking I would be stuck at home forever. Since then, I have started a career in finance and moved out of my parents' home when I bought a house with my twin brother at 22. I bought 2 brand new cars after that, and then I purchased my own home in April of last year. All by the age of 25. I am lucky enough to live in an affordable city in the Midwest. I am self-employed. I already own 2 homes that are paid off and only have 1 loan on one of my 3 cars. People often criticize the Midwest, but I absolutely love it. I grew up in the Deep South until I moved in 2020. The affordability compared to wages is very fair. When I lived in the South, I only made $8 per hour as a shift manager at a restaurant. Story 65. Happier? Not at all. I've been laid off, living paycheck to paycheck. Having enough money to be comfortable would be nice. I don't want millions, just enough to pay bills and have a little savings. Story 66. 5 years ago, I was painfully single. Today, I am happily married, and we are expecting our first child any day now. I would say that more money and less stress would make me even happier. Story 67. I have a stable job, great health insurance, medication for depression, medication for anxiety, a diagnosis and treatment for sleep apnea, and I've lost 62 pounds. The 2 main things that would make me happier are reaching a healthy weight and receiving a living wage. I am making progress on both. Story 68. It is difficult for many people to find happiness right now due to the constant turmoil in the United States. Every day brings new reasons to feel upset. I have emerged from an abusive marriage and am in a better financial position. I have lost the weight associated with my depression, and I recently secured a higher-paying job. I feel free and content. However, it is hard to find joy while being aware of the many individuals who are suffering. It is challenging to feel happy amid the ongoing fear of what lies ahead and the personal outrage over the unchecked rise of authoritarianism. Story 69. I was homeless and struggling with heroin and meth, and then I spent time in jail 5 years ago. Now I own a home, have a family, and hold a job. Somehow, I'm somewhat just as happy or unhappy. Some days are better than others. Story 70. 5 years ago, COVID-19 started and the world fell apart. But kids still lived at home. Now they have gone to college. I would say it's even. Story 71. Without a doubt, working hard and providing for my family is the only thing that matters. The only way it could be better is if baby number 2 started taking it easier on its mother. She has been going through a lot this pregnancy. Story 72. I was happier before. Life was more fulfilling. My dad died a few months ago, and I would give anything to have him back. 5 years ago, I hadn't made the decision to sell my large family home. Everything is different now, but not for the better. Story 73. Yes, my brother is remaining sober and finally getting his life together. There are many things that would improve my life, but that is probably the most significant. Story 74. No, not even close. Life is meaningless to me, so I don't really think anything can make me much happier. Back then, I wasn't questioning the purpose of life. I was just a high school student enjoying the fact that school was online instead of in person. Story 75. Yes, surprise, it's because of money. I am making nearly 5 times what I was 5 years ago and finally feel comfortable financially. Story 76. I am feeling more unhappy than ever before, including during my period of homelessness a decade ago. At this point, the only thing that would bring me happiness is finding the strength to end my life. Feels like it is just not worth it. Story 77. 5 years ago, it felt like the world was ending, and in some ways it was. My child had just turned 4, and I couldn't take him to the park anymore because I worried that my family and I might get sick and die. That was difficult. It marked the beginning of the end of my relationship, which was also hard. Now I am happier, but not happier than I was 6 years ago. Story 78. I'm extremely happy now. Being a complete workaholic, spending more than 5 days a week in the gym and using substances, I'll do anything to avoid feeling anything at all. Life is actually good. Story 79. I am almost 6 years sober with occasional drinks. I haven't blacked out in 6 years and have lost about 50 to 60 pounds. My credit score is in the high 700s, and my individual retirement account is growing quickly. I am working in a career and about to get licensed, making more money than I ever have. Having my own home, enough money to breathe easily, and sufficient free time and energy to relax would make me happier. Story 80. I am much happier. I had my 3rd child, changed careers which doubled my yearly income, and bought my first house. After over 10 years together, I am still very much in love with my wife. Although parenting is challenging, I love my children deeply and would do anything for them. The only thing that would make me happier is a little more financial stability, as my wife will not be going back to work until our youngest is in school next year. Besides my retirement contributions, we are not really able to build up any savings, and we are living paycheck to paycheck. I do not have much debt besides the house, and we will be on track once she is able to return to work. Right now, we are treading water until we can be a 2-income family again. Story 81. I eliminated negative influences in 2020. My disabled daughter's health has improved a little, and my finances are much better. My children and I are a strong family unit. Story 82. Happier now? Not at all. Since 2020, I've lost a friend of over 30 years. 2 of my best friends have moved out of the country. Several of my relatives have passed away, and my mother has Alzheimer's disease. I am glad for anyone who is happier now. I wish I were. Story 83. Happier, yes, probably the happiest I have ever been. Money, an extra $1,000 a month, would be life-changing. Story 84. I have gone from feeling deeply depressed to mostly numb and bored since then, so I suppose things are better. I am not angry or intoxicated anymore, but I often feel painfully bored. My social life completely disappeared when I stopped drinking, so it has been quite lonely lately. Story 85. I am concerned about the rise of right-wing extremism, not just in America, but globally. Billionaires appear more determined than ever to make people's lives difficult. Story 86. I feel sad right now because I lack a career and real friends, but I am financially secure in life, so there are both pros and cons. Story 87. Happier? No, I wasn't happy then either. My marriage started to fail shortly after my daughter was born. I met a man I thought was great. Turns out he hurt me on a whole new level. Story 88. I am so much happier and proud of this. I am grateful. The thing that would make me even happier is to get a job at Sutter Delta Emergency Room and start my life again. As my children are almost grown up, I want to be able to support myself well without any further severe health problems, both mental and physical. Story 89. I lost my job a month after moving to a new state, and it feels impossible to find a new one as a software engineer. Story 90, yes and no. I was able to smoke cannabis then, but now I'm not. I didn't know my boyfriend then, but I have him now. I would be happy if I could smoke cannabis with my boyfriend. Story 91. 5 years ago, I was 16, about to turn 17. I was in high school, navigating life, and the COVID-19 pandemic was about to begin. I was relatively happy back then, though it was challenging to help out frequently at my mother's boba store. It was a new venture, and I hoped it would succeed. 5 years later, the boba store closed 6 months in because the pandemic devastated public life. It remained operational, but customer numbers never recovered. My parents divorced due to philosophical differences about how to live life, and financial issues played a role in that argument. They are still divorced but managed to get along. My school life deteriorated significantly. I started college and pursued a degree in computer science because my logical mindset led me to believe it would provide financial stability. However, I was uninformed about how our society functions and did not foresee the decline in tech job demand. Moreover, I didn't engage in enough philosophical reflection to understand that I needed to invest 100% effort to compete. I faced a natural disadvantage because I wasn't deeply interested or passionate about computer science. While I can put in significant effort, the remaining 10% often comes from a genuine interest or passion, giving those who are passionate a natural advantage. The past nearly 4 years of pursuing my degree have been filled with sadness, frustration, and regret. The only thing that might have changed my path would have been if the wisdom I have now had somehow been implanted in my mind years ago. The changes needed to put me on a better trajectory were beyond my control. I also became more informed about politics and discovered my political identity aligned with my beliefs and principles. I found myself in one of the smallest minority groups in politics, which has seen little growth until recent years. Even so, we are still decades away from achieving real change. These past 5 years have brought the worst financial situation my family has ever experienced. We moved 3 times, each time to a more affordable place. The shift was dramatic, falling from lower middle class to a lower economic class. I can definitely say I have grown more comfortable with the idea of death. I am typically very cautious about danger, so my acceptance of mortality is a significant change. To clarify, I am not suicidal. I simply have a different outlook on the possibility of an early death. I have finally recognized that my passion lies in storytelling and creative writing. I have realized I prefer the creative arts over STEM fields. Unfortunately, this realization is dampened by the fact that our society often undervalues the arts, continually prioritizing funding for STEM at the expense of artistic endeavors. This lack of appreciation for the arts extends beyond school and into broader society. Creative artists compete with one another for the limited attention available. While people discuss actors and architects, how often do you hear about authors? People have talked about how AI can draw and create images, which was seen as a groundbreaking development in the art world. Yet, the media did not cover AI's ability to write stories and its impact on literature. It is easier to feed AI text than it is to help it understand art. I have mentioned my philosophical thinking before. One significant event in the last 5 years, aside from my younger brother being accepted into a prestigious art school, was my extensive self-reflection. I undertook this journey alone, without resources or guidance. I have gained a better understanding of my identity and the path I want to take. I have also grown in a positive direction. I used to be a laid-back person without hatred or anger, and now I've become even more empathetic and sympathetic to everyone. What could improve my life? Money. In this hyper-capitalist society, especially after the recent political changes, financial stability will become increasingly important. The greed of those who seek more wealth and have the resources to do so is why many average workers struggle financially. I hope people awaken to the truth and drive the changes we need. Story 92. I am much happier now. Just over 5 years ago, my then-wife initiated our divorce by attempting to accuse me of rape, which was extremely distressing. Eventually, the charges were dismissed, and I won a couple of civil cases against her. Now, I have a fiancé whom I trust to never do that to me. My ex frequently made jokes about framing me for rape if I left her, so I take some responsibility for that. I also have an 18-year-old daughter, as I legally adopted my partner's daughter. Additionally, being a criminal defense attorney with experience in false accusations of sexual assault has proven to be a significant advantage in my career. Story 93. I would say I'm happier, but not truly happy with what I'm doing. I've managed to save a good amount of money compared to 5 years ago. I finally obtained a college degree after returning to school in my mid-20s, and I have a great girlfriend. I still find myself wanting more and desiring to do something different than where I am now. I have never loved nor liked working a standard corporate job, and I long to do more while I am on this planet. It's as if the entire world is at my disposal to explore and pursue my dreams, but I never take action. For that reason, I find myself less happy now than I was 5 years ago, when I could have dropped everything at 25 and truly pursued what I wanted for a few years. Story 94. No, but not less happy, sort of the same. Life is very different, with many ups and downs, but happiness is a strange thing. Happier? I know that having more money is not a legitimate reason for happiness, but I earn significantly more than I did 5 years ago, and yet it still seems like I don't have any. Story 95. 5 years ago, I was informed that I had cancer. I went through chemotherapy, which resulted in significant damage to my lungs from numerous infections. However, I can walk slowly and breathe with the lung capacity of a 6-year-old. I am much happier now that I have survived. Story 96. I have been at a standstill since 2019. The only difference was that I had some hope left in 2020, and now I am just older with less time ahead of me. As for what would make me happier, I am not sure, but money would be a good start. Story 97. I am living alone and no longer in a toxic, abusive relationship. My mental and emotional health are much better. Story 98. I'm not sure, to be honest. Probably not. I was in a relationship in 2020 and got broken up with on this day in 2022, which led to a horrible depression for a few years. Recently, I've been asking myself if I'm happy and trying to discover how to make myself feel happy and fulfilled. So far, I haven't figured things out yet, but maybe someday I will. I don't know what would help, to be honest. I have always dreamed of going to Japan and becoming a writer, so I've started saving money and brainstorming ideas for some books. Story 99. I don't know exactly when, but it was about 5 years ago that the first coronavirus lockdown in Germany was announced. Wow, that was 5 years ago. I was 14 back then, and a lot has happened in those 5 years. Story 100. 5 years ago today, the world was shutting down, starting with my work. I watched the pandemic spread on the World Health Organization website in real time. I was about to become miserable, facing a complete lack of work-life balance. Once that situation improved, everything else fell apart, and I have been stuck in a mediocre plateau for a year and a half. Things are not bad, but it has definitely been a while since I felt truly happy. I could feel that way if it seemed like the prospect of an established and happy family life was within reach. Story 101. Yes, I have financial stability, an amazing career, a wife, and my first child on the way. It has been a challenging journey to reach this point. Story 102. I am happier now because 5 years ago I lost my parents very suddenly. I also feel happier because I realized that losing them gradually in hospice would have been more difficult. Story 103. I'm not sure, but financial stability would help. I do well financially, but my industry has been struggling for the last few years, and I always feel insecure about the future. If I knew my job was secure, I'd be a lot less anxious. Story 104. I was depressed 5 years ago and still am. At this point, I'm not sure what could help me out of this situation. Story 105. I lost my left leg and, as a result, my job. I still wake up every day with a smile. It's my life and my decisions to make. Look up, everyone. I'm not rich in money, but I am rich in friends. Story 106. Yes, absolutely. My life and my relationships with my family and spouse are thriving. However, my health is failing due to a worsening chronic illness, so I can't fully enjoy my time with them. If I were healthy, I would be much happier. Story 107. I am happier now than I was 5 years ago because I have learned about myself and improved physically and mentally, but I still have a long way to go. I will be much happier once I can take my shirt off in public without worrying about being judged by others or myself. Story 108. Great question, it made me think. I believe I am about the same, but when I considered the things that would make me happier, they are literally tasks I can complete in less than a week. Therefore, I will proceed to accomplish them. Thank you for helping me become self-aware for a moment. Story 109. Yes, I got out of one of the most toxic environments, Army, Hawaii. I've experienced since growing up with my own mother, and that says a lot. I'm home. Virginia is difficult. I have a broken mind and body, and I'm below the middle class financially, but I'm no longer their monster. I'm free, and my family's future is secure. That's all I care about. The only things that would make me much happier would be getting our dream home, being better off financially, and, last but not least, achieving my dream career. Story 110. Happy? Probably not. I have more money but have lost a father and mother figure, and I was rejected by the love of my life. My dad was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer, which fortunately was cured, all within the last 3 months. The only silver lining is that I finally took therapy and started to work on myself. I have definitely grown a lot more emotionally in the last 3 months than I have in the last 5 years. Therefore, I will still consider it a win. Being comfortable in my own skin and living life to the fullest, with or without a partner, is something I aspire to. Story 111. I enjoyed the extra family time during the pandemic, and now I work more while the kids haven't grown older. I kind of miss it. Story 112. Honestly, no. 5 years ago, I was a senior in high school. I was never really scared or worried about COVID-19, and I was only working a part-time job. The only bill I had to worry about was my car insurance. There was much less stress back then. What would make me happier now is a new career. I got my commercial driver's license, and I regret it because I dislike the industry and driving now. There is too much frustration. Story 113. Quite the opposite, actually. I had many friends and love interests, and there was so much happening. Now I have friends, but they are busy with their own lives and job situations. I have no girl and am just sitting at home. Story 114. Yes, I am happier now. Years of effective counseling have helped me find peace in my life. Money cannot buy peace. Story 115. Being sure about my health and the health of my loved ones, along with financial security for the future, is all I need to be even happier. Story 116. Are you happier than you were 5 years ago? Now, what would make you happier now? A lot of money, medication, a European Union visa, someone who loves me, a cozy stone cottage, my health restored with gene editing to prevent cancer, and a Steam Deck OLED. Story 117. I am much happier now. 5 years ago, I thought I was happy, but I was really lonely aside from my family. That was also when I began talking to someone I started dating, which ended in a prolonged breakup that should have concluded months earlier. While I am happy now, what would make me even happier is for my crush to like me back one day. However, I understand that it will take some time, as we just met about a week ago, but we have so much in common already, and I have really enjoyed getting to know him so far. Story 118. 5 years ago, there were lockdowns, families devastated by illnesses, and treatments at hospitals being delayed due to COVID-19, with people dying alone without their families. My dad passed away during this period, and my mother, by sheer luck, managed not to catch COVID-19. I sometimes think about what happened to my childhood friend, and I realize how fortunate I am for not having to go through what she experienced. Both her grandparents contracted COVID-19 and had to be taken to separate hospitals. The husband passed away first, and the family had to inform his wife that he was no longer alive. She passed away days later, her heart broken and her will to live diminished, allowing COVID-19 to claim another victim. Had my mother contracted the same illness, the chances would have been high that I would have lost both my parents in a very short time, as my dad passed away on Christmas morning. So yes, I am happier than I was 5 years ago. It is clear what would make me even happier now, but we can't always get what we want. Story 119. I stopped dating women with difficult children who projected their frustrations onto my son, making him the one in trouble. I watched her spoon feed an 8-year-old because he was upset about chicken. I observed through a kitchen window as the same child played with mine, then dropped to the ground as if he were being struck by an invisible force. He came in crying, and even though I saw what happened, I was still scolded. So yes, I am married a year now, and I have strong feelings about that child. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.